Welcome to the place where the night never ends, and neither do the screams. Turn off the lights. Lock your doors. You're about to hear stories that were never meant to be told. You don't end up in Juniper Hollow on accident. The mountain roads twist like veins, and fog rolls in like it's breathing. Most GPS signals cut out before you reach the first ridge. But Theo wasn't looking for directions. He was looking for her. Her name was Maris Hale, and she vanished 5 years ago. She was his fiancée. And she was supposed to be dead. They never found her body. Just her car, abandoned along an overlook. No footprints. No blood. Only her engagement ring left on the dash like a silent apology. But last week, Theo received a letter. No return address. Just a note in her handwriting. I'm still here, Theo. Please come find me. Before I forget you completely. M. The postmark read, Juniper Hollow, W.V. The town appeared through thick mist like something remembered from a dream. Quaint. Silent. Untouched by time. Theo pulled into the only inn, a Victorian thing with leaning shutters and ivy choking the sides. The woman at the desk stared too long when he gave his name. You're not supposed to come back, she said. He blinked. I've never been here. She didn't respond. Just slid him a key with the number room 6, her hand trembling slightly. That night, the dream started. Not nightmares. Not at first. He dreamed of Maris. Standing barefoot by the river, in the same red dress she wore the day she disappeared. Her eyes full of sorrow. Her lips moving, saying something he couldn't hear. When he woke, his pillow was damp. And the scent of juniper filled the air. The next day, Theo wandered the town. Locals watched him through half-closed blinds. No one spoke. No children laughed. A woman at the cafe offered him coffee and asked if he'd seen the river girls yet. He asked what she meant. She just smiled. They come back when they're loved too hard. He left before finishing his cup. At sunset, he followed the riverbank. The same one from his dream. And that's when he saw her. Maris. Or something wearing her. Her shape. Standing knee-deep in the water, red dress clinging to her like a memory. She looked at him. And in her eyes was the kind of grief that only comes from remembering love after death. Don't touch me, she said, voice shaking. If you do, I won't be able to let go again. Theo didn't move. The air between them felt heavy, not just with fog, but with grief. The kind that rots slowly in the bones. Maris stood in the river, water swirling around her like it knew her shape. Her skin was pale, too pale, and her lips trembled with something worse than fear. Maris, he whispered. She shook her head. You shouldn't be here. You asked me to come. I didn't, she said, eyes darkening. Not me. She turned and walked deeper into the river, disappearing into mist that rose like steam from the banks. Her red dress was the last thing he saw, the same dress she wore the night she vanished. Theo stepped forward to follow, but a sharp voice stopped him cold. You step into that water, and she'll never let go. He turned. An old man stood a few feet back in the woods, leaning on a cane. His eyes were pale as snow, but sharp. You came for her, didn't you? The man asked. Theo nodded. The old man exhaled through his nose. They all do. First year I moved here, I watched a boy walk into that river for his dead sister. Came back out smiling like a lunatic. Said she sang to him under the water. Said she missed their childhood. By morning, he was gone. Theo swallowed. Gone. The man nodded toward the water. She pulled him under. Took his lungs full of love and fed it to the hollow. Theo stared at the river, breath short. What, is she? The man shook his head. She was Maris once. But now? Now she's just one of the river girls. Girls the hollow keeps alive on the edge of death, half memory, half hunger. Beautiful. Gentle. And hungry for the men who loved them. Theo looked down at the letter in his coat pocket. She sent this. The old man frowned. No, son. The hollow sent that. That night, Theo stayed in his room with every light on. He didn't sleep. At 3:07 a.m., he heard soft tapping at the window. Not knocking. Tapping. Like fingernails on glass. He crept forward and slowly parted the curtain. Maris stood outside. Soaking wet. Hair plastered to her face. Eyes wide. She didn't smile. Didn't blink. She mouthed something. 3 words. You left me. Theo stumbled back. But he didn't run. Because he still loved her. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. The next morning, Theo stood at the riverbank again, this time holding the letter. The current moved slowly, like something breathing beneath the surface. Fog drifted just above the water like a veil. He wasn't alone. The old man from before was already waiting for him, tossing pebbles into the river. She came to your window last night, he said. Theo didn't answer. You opened the curtain. She's in you now. Even if you don't feel it yet. Theo turned. Why are you helping me? The old man laughed, but there was no humor in it. Because I loved one too. Back in 72. Her name was Clara. She drowned in the river after I called off our wedding. Every year since, she stood outside my window on the night she died, wearing the same yellow dress. She never speaks. Just watches. Theo swallowed. What do they want? The man looked at the water. To be remembered. To be loved so hard it cracks the bones. The hollow feeds on longing. That's how it stays alive. Theo unfolded the letter. I thought she was alive. I thought maybe. The man cut him off. She is, but not the way you think. She didn't drown. She ran here. She tried to run from grief. Theo looked up sharply. What do you mean? The man pulled something from his coat, a photo. A blurry image, aged and faded. It was Maris, standing next to a stone marker, with her name on it. She came here after a miscarriage, the man said. You didn't know, did you? Theo's knees went weak. She wanted to disappear. Said she didn't deserve happiness. The river heard her. Took her in. The hollow turned her into one of its own, a half-memory, half-guilt ghost. She lives in the water now, made of sorrow and echoes. Theo crumpled the letter in his fist. So how do I bring her back? You don't, the man said. But you can set her free. There's a way, if she remembers herself, even for a moment, the hollow loses its grip. Theo looked at him. What does that mean? You remind her who she was. The way she loved you. Not the guilt. Not the grief. Just, the girl in the red dress who wanted to grow old with you. The man pulled a silver pocket watch from his coat and handed it over. She gave me this before she walked into the river 5 years ago. Said to give it to you if you ever came. Theo opened it. Inside was a photo of them, him and Maris, at the lake, arms around each other. Smiling. Whole. And beneath the photo, engraved in her handwriting. If you ever come looking, I'll try to remember you first. That night, Theo returned to the river. This time, he didn't run when she emerged. She stood at the water's edge, skin pale, dress heavy with memory. Her eyes were hollow, but they flickered when she saw what he held. He stepped forward. Held out the pocket watch. You were never the hollows, he whispered. You were always mine. She didn't move. Then, her fingers trembled. Her mouth opened. Theo. Her voice. Her real voice. Soft. Broken. And for a moment, she was Maris again. But the river stirred. The current grew black. And a voice rose up from beneath. She remembers. That is not allowed. The water reached for her ankles like hands. Theo lunged and grabbed her. And the hollow screamed. Theo's fingers wrapped around Maris's wrist, cold as winter, delicate as glass. Her eyes flickered like candles in a storm. The current surged. The hollow had noticed. From the riverbed rose arms, long and slick, formed of water and bone, clutching toward her ankles like roots hungry for light. Maris trembled. Theo. I don't want to forget you again. You won't, he said. You remember now. That's what matters. Her lips quivered. It hurts. I know, he whispered, drawing her closer to the bank. But you're not alone anymore. Behind them, the woods bent inward, branches twitching unnaturally. The air hummed with rage. The hollow was waking fully, and it wasn't going to let her go easily. Suddenly the river screamed. Not water. A voice. Ancient. You belong to me. Maris cried out, not from pain, but from fear. And her body started to change. Her skin grew translucent, like water flowing through memory. Her hair curled in strange directions, as if drowning in place. Her mouth opened in a silent wail, and half her face became the river. She was being pulled back. No. Theo shouted. He wrapped both arms around her and dragged her toward the shore. But the hollow wasn't finished. A second Maris rose behind him. Same red dress. Same smile. But the eyes, wrong. Black and full of hunger. It reached for him. Let her go, it cooed in her voice. She's just grief. I can be perfect. I can be all the love without the pain. Theo turned, and shoved the watch into Maris's real hand. The one who trembled. The one who cried. The one who remembered. The pocket watch burst open again, the photo exposed to the moonlight. The memory of their love, full and real, not rewritten by guilt, pulsed between them like light through water. And the hollow screamed again. Louder. No. You cannot love what you have buried. The false Maris dissolved in a splash of black water. The river itself recoiled, as if it had been burned by the memory. Maris collapsed into Theo's arms, breathing hard. Her face was her own again. Her body, warm. She was alive. And the river fell silent. 1 week later. They left Juniper Hollow at dawn. No one stopped them. The town didn't say goodbye, it simply vanished behind them in the fog, as if swallowing its own guilt. Maris rarely speaks of the time she spent in the hollow. Sometimes she wakes with tears and leaves the bath running too long, staring into the water like it might speak back. But Theo stays. And when the nights grow cold and quiet, they lie together, holding hands, and neither dares say the one truth they both know. Love saved her, but the hollow still remembers his name. There's a town tucked between the Appalachian hills that doesn't show up on most maps anymore. Cradle Creek, population unknown, but the church still stands, the diner still serves black coffee, and the gas station still takes cash only. Ellie never planned to stop. She was headed farther south, trying to outrun a bad memory and a worse decision, when her car began to sputter just as the sun dipped below the ridgeline. With no signal and the tank nearly empty, the wooden sign on the roadside, "Welcome to Cradle Creek," looked like salvation. Only, the town felt wrong the moment she drove in. The street lamps were flickering despite the clear sky. The few townspeople she saw on the sidewalk stood too still. And at the center of it all, rising above the sloping buildings like a crooked spine, was the old bell tower. The kind built before cell phones, before electricity, before people forgot how to listen to silence. Ellie pulled into a diner called May's Place. It looked abandoned, but the neon open sign buzzed in the window. Inside, the smell of burnt coffee and something old, sweet, and slightly metallic greeted her. A woman stood behind the counter, pale, thin, eyes wide like a deer on the edge of a road. "You're not from here," the woman said, without smiling. Ellie hesitated. "Just passing through." The woman nodded slowly. "People don't pass through Cradle Creek. They stay, or they disappear." Behind Ellie, the door creaked open. A man walked in, soaked in sweat despite the cool air. He didn't speak. Just sat in the booth across from her and stared at the ceiling. "Who rings the bell now?" Ellie asked, motioning toward the tower through the window. The woman flinched. "Nobody," she whispered. "Not since the hollow took the last child." Ellie blinked. "The hollow?" Before the woman could answer, the man in the booth began humming a lullaby. Soft. Haunting. Off-key. The woman's face turned pale. "You should go. Now. Before the sun's all the way down." "But my car." "Don't matter. Run if you have to. Just don't stay when the bell rings." Ellie stood to leave, then froze. Outside, high above the town, the wind had changed. The leaves whispered in a different language. And from deep inside the hills, from the mouth of the hollowed-out mountain beyond the bell tower, a low, metallic clang echoed through the dusk. And the bell hadn't rung in 20 years. The sound of the bell didn't stop. It rang once, then again, each chime slower, deeper, like it was being pulled from the belly of the earth. And with each toll, Ellie felt it in her chest. Like something old had been awakened. The woman behind the counter backed away, trembling. "It's not possible," she whispered. "They sealed the tower. They buried the chain. They swore." "What's going on?" Ellie asked, but the woman was already gone, slipping through a back door and locking it behind her. Ellie stumbled outside, where dusk had deepened into a sickly twilight. The street was empty now, all doors shut, curtains drawn. Even the dogs had gone silent. Only the bell kept ringing, slower and heavier each time. Ellie turned toward the sound, eyes locking on the bell tower. It stood crooked atop a stone chapel covered in ivy and rot. The cross on top had snapped in half. And there, at its base, stood a boy. He couldn't have been more than 10. Dirty jeans, bare feet, and a white shirt stained red around the collar. He was staring up at the bell with wide, dead eyes. Ellie froze. "Hey, are you okay?" The boy didn't answer. He opened his mouth slightly, and a soft clicking sound came out. Rhythmic. Insect-like. Then he turned and ran. Not toward the houses or the road, but straight for the woods behind the chapel. Ellie should have left right then. But something about the boy, his eyes, the sound, the stains on his collar, made her legs move. She followed. As she stepped past the chapel, the grass turned brittle under her feet. The air smelled wrong, like old books and damp ash. And deeper in the woods, she found something she couldn't explain. A hole. Perfectly circular, like a tunnel carved into the base of the mountain, wide enough to crawl into. Around its edge were small handprints in the dirt. Some fresh. Some old. Some smaller than any child should have had. Ellie leaned closer. A voice came from behind her. "Don't listen to it." She turned. A man in a park ranger's coat stood at the edge of the clearing. His badge was faded, his face hollow-eyed. He held a rusted lantern, casting a weak glow. "They come out when the bell rings," he said. "Who?" He pointed at the hole. "The ones who were taken. The ones who don't sleep right. They remember their names, but not their faces. They call out, and if you answer, they take your skin so they can be warm again." Ellie staggered back from the hole. "I don't understand. Who rang the bell?" The ranger's eyes darkened. "Something woke up. Something that's been waiting." Then he leaned closer and whispered. "And now it knows your name." Ellie backed away from the hole. The air around it had gone ice-cold. The ranger stood still, lantern flickering like it might go out. I need to leave," she stammered. He shook his head slowly. "Once you hear the bell, the hollow hears you back. Leaving won't help." "Then what will?" The ranger looked toward the trees. "Only one way to keep them from crawling in through your dreams: you have to see them. All the way. You have to know what they were, before they forgot how to die." And with that, he turned and walked into the woods. Ellie hesitated, then followed. The forest swallowed the last of the daylight. As they walked, she noticed strange things: trees with symbols carved deep into their bark, rocks stacked into delicate spirals, and scattered belongings: a muddy baby shoe, a cracked mirror, a child's stuffed rabbit torn at the seams. Then, they came to a clearing. The ranger stopped. In the center stood six wooden crosses, each with a name carved in jagged letters. No dates. Just names. Beneath one, the soil looked recently disturbed. "That's where they buried the bell ringer's daughter," he muttered. "She was the first taken." Ellie's throat tightened. The bell ringer? Used to ring it to warn the town when the hollow stirred. Until the day it took his girl. After that, he stopped. Said if she was going to live down there, he'd damn well keep the rest of the town quiet. Ellie glanced behind her. The woods felt tighter now, like the trees had leaned closer. Watching. I saw a boy earlier. He ran from the chapel. The ranger didn't blink. What color were his eyes? They were dark. Empty. The ranger lowered his lantern. Then it wasn't a boy. Suddenly, a soft sound cut through the trees, a lullaby. The same one from the diner. Only this time, multiple voices sang it together, just slightly out of sync. Children's voices, soft and wrong. Ellie's skin prickled. The ranger turned sharply. They're near. When they sing, they're looking for the ones who remember too much. He handed her something from his coat, a strip of cloth, woven with symbols and knotted with red thread. Wrap this around your wrist. Don't speak your name. Don't answer if they call it. And no matter what you hear, don't look them in the eyes. Ellie tied the cloth around her wrist, hands trembling. The singing was closer now. Behind the trees. Beneath the earth. Inside her head. I didn't even say my name, she whispered. The ranger stared at her grimly. You didn't have to. The bell already spoke it for you. Then, from the darkness just beyond the clearing, something moved. Pale, spindly limbs. Crawling on all fours. Too long. Too fast. More than one. The hollow was awake. And it was coming home. The ranger snuffed out the lantern. Don't move, he whispered. They're blind when they crawl. They follow sound. Breath. Names. Ellie could barely keep her body from trembling. The woods around her pulsed with quiet footfalls, like small bones tapping on bark. She bit her lip to stop herself from screaming. Then came the voice. A perfect imitation of her own. Ellie. It came from her left. Low. Croaking. Like her name had been chewed through old teeth. Ellie, you left me, in the dark. She turned sharply, but the ranger grabbed her arm. Don't. That's how they take your face. The woods fell still again. Not quiet, just waiting. The ranger finally moved, pulling her along a narrow path that curved back toward town. The bell had stopped ringing, but the silence it left behind felt heavier than sound. They emerged behind the chapel, where the crooked tower loomed above them. Its front doors were chained shut. They locked it years ago, the ranger said, pulling a rusted key from his belt. But you're gonna have to go inside. What? Why? Because something let the bell ring tonight. And I think it came from the basement. He unlocked the doors and shoved them open. The air that spilled out was thick with mold, rot, and something like blood on old stone. Inside, the pews were coated in dust. The altar was cracked. At the back, a hatch in the floor had been pried open recently. A rope ladder led down into the dark. The ranger handed her an old flashlight. I can't go with you. I rang the bell once. I've already seen what's down there. But you still have a choice. Ellie stared at him, then at the hatch. I never asked to be part of this, she whispered. No one ever does. But if you don't face it, it will find you. And when it does, it'll wear your face like a mask. Swallowing hard, Ellie climbed down. The ladder creaked. The stone walls were damp and close. When she reached the bottom, the flashlight flickered. She was in a narrow corridor that led to a circular room, what used to be the chapel's crypt. Inside the crypt were dozens of masks. Human faces, flayed and dried like leather, tacked to the stone walls. Some had names etched beneath them. Others had none. In the center of the room, a child-sized figure sat in a circle of salt. Pale skin. Back turned. Silent. Ellie stepped closer. "Are you okay?" she asked. The figure turned slowly. It was the boy from earlier, but his eyes were stitched shut, black thread curling into his cheeks. He opened his mouth. And a bell chime came out. A horrible clang, too deep for a child's voice, echoed through the crypt. The flashlight went out. Ellie dropped it, stumbling backward. The stitched boy stood. Not walking. Floating. "You heard the bell," he said in a voice not his own. "Now they will take you, unless you give them someone else." Ellie backed into the wall, her hands brushing against something, another face, dry and cracked, hanging cold on the stone. And behind her. Something breathed, the breath behind Ellie wasn't human. It came in slow, wheezing pulls, like air forced through wet lungs. Cold air washed over the back of her neck. She didn't dare turn around. The stitched boy hovered just beyond the salt circle, his head tilting in unnatural angles. "You were chosen," he whispered. "But you can pass the name. Trade your skin for another." Ellie's voice was barely a breath. "What, are you?" The boy paused, as if thinking through centuries of memory. "I was Jonas Wren. Bell ringer's son. They said the hollow needed a name. A voice. A child that would stay in the dark, so they wouldn't have to." His stitched eyelids fluttered, as though something squirmed behind them. "They fed me to it," he rasped. Ellie's heart thudded. "Your father, he gave you to the hollow?" The boy smiled, lips cracking open to reveal jagged, shifting teeth. "He said it was my honor. That the town would never forget me. But they did. They always do." Suddenly, the faces on the wall twitched. One by one, the skin masks began to turn, mouths opening, silent screams etched into their weathered features. "They on. Only remember when the bell rings," Jonas said. "That's why I rang it tonight. So someone new would come. Someone fresh." The salt circle around him flickered, like the energy holding it together was fraying. Ellie backed toward the ladder, but the boy raised a hand. "If you leave," he hissed, "you will carry the bell with you. And it will ring every night in your head, until the hollow answers." She froze. From the walls, the faces began to whisper her name. Dozens of dried, hollow voices. All in unison. "Ellie. Ellie. Ellie." And then, another voice joined in. One that wasn't from the wall. From the shadows near the back of the crypt, a woman stepped forward. The diner lady. Her face was pale, streaked with tears. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't tell you the truth. You weren't the first traveler we lured in. You're just the first in a long time the hollow actually chose." Ellie stared at her, heart crashing against her ribs. "You knew this would happen." The woman nodded. "We had to feed it. The hollow needs names. If we don't give it one every few years, it takes children. We haven't had a choice since Jonas. Since the pact." Jonas let out a sound like laughter and sobbing mixed together. "So she finally admits it," he said. "Tell her the rest. Tell her what happens if she refuses." The woman's eyes met Ellie's. "If you don't give the hollow a name, it will take your reflection. Your voice. Your dreams. You'll live, but it'll wear you when it walks. It'll smile through your face. Jonas's voice deepened. Or, give it someone else. Give it the ranger. The diner lady. Someone. Speak a name. Any name but your own. The light flickered. The salt line broke. Jonas stepped out. And the hollow followed him. Jonas stepped out of the broken salt ring, but it wasn't just him anymore. His body twisted, bones snapping into new angles, limbs jerking like a puppet in the hands of something beneath the floor. His stitched eyelids tore open. No eyes. Inside, just hollow black pits, wide and endless. Behind him, the hollow emerged. It didn't have a shape, not one Ellie could understand. Just a shifting ripple of shadow and limbs and faces, hundreds of them, sliding over its skin like wet paper dolls. Each one whispering. Crying. Laughing in broken tones. Ellie fell backward. The diner woman dropped to her knees, sobbing. I'm sorry, Ellie. I should have told you before. But I couldn't face it again. I couldn't live with the sound of it calling my name. Jonas, if he still was Jonas, hovered above the chapel floor. Choose, he whispered, voice full of many voices. Or the hollow will choose for you. The whispering faces on the walls grew louder, overlapping like a storm of secrets. The room darkened. The air thickened, full of rot and memory. Ellie clutched her head. Her name echoed through the crypt again and again, until it didn't feel like hers anymore. She turned to the diner woman. How many people have you fed it? The woman sobbed harder. Too many. But the town, the children, they sleep when it eats. That's how we survive. Ellie looked toward the ladder. No time to run. Then, a thought. If the hollow feeds on names, then names are currency. Weapons. Traps. Her voice came out steady. I won't give my name, she said. And I won't give hers. Jonas smiled, mouth stretching far too wide. Then scream, he said. Let the hollow pull your name from your bones. Ellie reached into her pocket. Her hand brushed the strip of cloth the ranger had given her, woven with symbols, knotted with red thread. Her thumb caught on a loose end. She remembered what he told her. Don't speak your name. Don't look them in the eyes. And if all else fails, give the hollow its own. Her eyes shot open. She shouted. Jonas Wren. The air turned to ice. The hollow screamed, not in pain, but in surprise. Jonas's form jolted violently, his body convulsing midair. The name, his name, had been spoken. Not offered. Returned. The faces on the walls wailed. The ground cracked. The chapel itself groaned like it remembered something too old and too awful. Jonas shrieked. No. You don't get to give me back. I was the bell's voice. I was the first. But the hollow surged forward, pulling him in, dragging him screaming into its center. His face split, peeled away, and was swallowed like all the rest. And then, stillness. The masks on the walls fell. The whispering stopped. The hollow was full. And it sank back into the cracks of the chapel floor, leaving nothing but dust. Ellie collapsed. The diner woman was sobbing into her hands. From above, the ranger's voice echoed down. You did it, didn't you? Ellie didn't speak. She just stared at the floor where Jonas had stood, his voice still echoing faintly in the back of her skull. The bell remembers, and one day, it rings again. The chapel hatch groaned as Ellie climbed out, the ranger helping her with shaking hands. He looked older, like the crypt had stolen years from both of them. "She gave it back," he said, staring at the church floor. "The name. You actually gave it back." Ellie nodded slowly. "It took him all the way this time." They stood in silence. The chapel was quiet now. The tower no longer hummed. But something lingered beneath the floor, like a sleeping beast, belly full, twitching in its dreams. The diner woman stumbled out next, eyes red and hollow. She looked at Ellie, but said nothing. Outside, dawn had begun to bleed over the mountains. A pale gray light. A soft wind. But the town of Cradle Creek still felt wrong. The ranger gestured toward the main road. "You should leave. While it's still quiet." Ellie didn't argue. They walked together past shuttered homes and crooked street lamps. She noticed now how the houses weren't just old, they were rotting, like the whole town had been dying in slow motion for decades. When they reached her car, the ranger pressed a folded piece of paper into her hand. "Burn this if the dreams start," he said. "And if you ever hear the bell again, don't answer it." Ellie got into her car, turned the key. It started. But before she pulled away, she looked back at Cradle Creek one last time. The ranger was gone. The diner, gone. The chapel. Still there. But the bell tower collapsed. As if it had never stood at all. She drove. Miles passed. Trees thinned. Her signal returned. Civilization crept back in. But something followed. That night, in a motel an hour outside Cradle Creek, Ellie woke in a cold sweat. From the far corner of the room came a dull metallic chime. Once. Then silence. Her phone lit up on the nightstand. No number. Just a name. Jonas Wren. She didn't answer. She didn't move. But from the mirror above the sink, her reflection smiled back. Ellie didn't sleep the rest of that night. She stared at the mirror until morning, waiting for her reflection to move wrong again. It didn't. But it watched her. Blinked slower. Smiled wider. Like something inside her was learning how to wear her properly. At dawn, she packed her things and drove, not sure where. She told herself she was leaving it behind. That Cradle Creek was just a nightmare stitched together by trauma and fear. But every night since, she hears the bell. It doesn't come from outside anymore, it tolls inside her dreams. A low chime, heavy and wet, echoing through empty buildings and flooded woods. Sometimes she sees Jonas in the background, standing in the dark, holding a peeled face like a mask, waiting to put it on. Other nights, she's back in the crypt, and the walls whisper her name. They never scream it. They savor it. One night, she drove to a gas station to clear her head. An old man behind the counter looked up and said, without even asking her name, "You've been to the place that rings." She froze. He didn't elaborate. Just handed her a small tin box. Inside, salt. Red thread. A slip of parchment with symbols carved in ash. "Keep this with you," he said. "When it comes for your voice, bite your tongue till it bleeds. That'll slow it down." She never saw him again. Weeks passed. She moved from motel to motel. New town. New job. New everything. But still, it followed. Until, one night, she woke to find herself standing in the mirror. Not looking at it. In it. The real her was on the outside. Breathing. Blinking. But the version in the glass. Smiling. Motionless. She screamed, and the reflection screamed too, but half a second late. She smashed the mirror. And in the shards, she saw something crawl back into the cracks. 3 months after Cradle Creek, Ellie mailed a letter to an online forum for paranormal researchers. It was her confession. Her warning. She ended it with one sentence. If you ever hear a bell at night, and no one else does, run. Because if you answer, you'll never know if the face in your mirror is still yours.